Yep, and then the video as well. There we go. Whenever you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to the order the May 12th, 2026 regular zoning board of appeals meeting. I'd like to have the board introduce themselves. So
Dave Bischoff. Dennis Crow.
my name is Rich Gilbert. I'm
Dylan Zalak. John Zier. Get Wilcox, alternate.
So just like to remind everyone that board votes are needed for an application to be approved. Any and all items are exhibits and will be retained in the file. After the applicant's presentation is made, board will ask questions they may have, and then the audience may have questions that they may have. After the discussion, we'll ask anyone to speak in favor or against the applicant. Presenters or audience members speaking are asked to give their name and address the first time they speak, and then just their name any subsequent time. The application has been heard. We'll close the public portion of the hearing and the board will go into deliberations. And at that time, no additional testimony to or from the audience can be permitted. Usually we'll make our decision after those deliberations. I'd like to ask our zoning officer, Maria Tollett, if you would please read the notice for tonight, please.
Legal notice, Madison Zoning Board of Appeals, Madison, Connecticut. Notice is hereby given that the board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 12th, 2026, beginning at 7 p.m. in Meeting Room A, Town Campus, 8 Campus Drive, Madison, Connecticut, 06443. This is a hybrid meeting and attendees may also join via Zoom webinar through the webinar link or call-in information below, www.zoom.us, webinar ID 92002702103, password 3888184, call-in 1646-558-8656. Following applications will be heard. Number 26-461 Middle Beach Road West, map 15, lot 23, zone R4, owner applicant Little Bird LLC. Variance request to section 3.6D, 7.2 feet side yard east where 12 feet is required, 3.6D, 1.1 foot side yard west where 12 feet is required, 3.8 feet, 4,062 square feet floor area where 2,840 square feet is allowed, 3.9A, 32.5 feet max average building height, where 28 is allowed, 3.9D, 37.3 max total height building where 36 is allowed, and section 2.17, 42.3 feet to the critical coastal resource setback where 50 feet is required for demolition and reconstruction of a single family home. Application includes a coastal site plan. The second application being heard tonight is 26-522 Flower Avenue, map 15, lot 72. Zone R5, owner applicant Michael E. Zarella and Rachel Narowski Zarella. Variance request to section 3.6A, 15.2 feet front yard where 25 feet is required, 3.6D, 9.7 feet side yard where 12 is required, and section 2.17, 29 feet to the critical coastal resource setback where 50 feet is required to construct an addition. Application includes a coastal site plan. Copies of these applications are available for inspection at the Land Use Office. Further details on how to participate in the webinar are posted on the Town of Madison website, www.madisonct.org. All written correspondence can be submitted to the Land Use Department via email at landuse@madisonct.org. Dial 203-245-5631 for assistance. Dated the 16th day of April 2026. Rich Gilbert, Chair. This was published twice in The Source, once on April 30th, 2026, and once on May 7, 2026.
Thank you, Maria. So at this time, I'd like to ask the applicant for application 26-4 for 61 Middle Beach Road West. They could please present.
Hi, Good evening. I'm Attorney Chris McKeon. My office address is 900 Chapel Street in New Haven, Connecticut. I live here in town at 31 Hotchkiss Lane. I'm here tonight representing the applicant Little Bird LLC, which is an LLC owned by Mrs. Renata Jeremiah. Her husband Brian Jeremiah is here with me tonight. Our team is attending via Zoom. Mike Ott is the site engineer, Summerhill Engineering and Land Surveyors, and the project architect is John Parker here in town, who works with his son Dylan Parker. I think they're both on via Zoom as well. Dylan, I think, joining us from San Francisco, as I recall. This project started a while ago. Brian reached out to Mike Ott and myself over a year ago, and the planning for this lot is one of these challenging lots that is direct waterfront. It is needing to comply with FEMA, obviously, and it has a very unique situation in terms of the lot configuration, which I'll get into. But the project is to demolish the existing home and garage, which is close to Middle Beach West. Like many of the homes there, they have the garages out in front, which are not compliant. But the house was built in 1890. It's a cottage. And the intent here is to demolish both structures and reconstruct a FEMA compliant home in which Mr. and Mrs. Jeremiah intend to live. So with that, we take a look at the situation that the architects and the engineer were confronted with here. And specifically, the lot itself is non-conforming in lot area. It's 9,275 square feet, where 10,000 square feet is required. The minimum shape that needs to fit in there is an 80-foot square, only a 42.8-foot square fits. And most importantly, and notably, the lot width here is 42.4 feet, where 80 feet is required. So if you look at a 42.4 foot wide lot and you take two 12-foot side yard setbacks, taking 24 feet away, you're left with a building envelope that is 18.4 feet wide on a waterfront lot. I haven't seen one with that narrow of a building envelope, and it's pretty easy to see when you just look at the GIS map for lot 23 here. The lot next door, has a flange out, so it has more buildable area out near the water. And just a simple drawing that I did on our site plan, which is part of the record.
Do we have those materials?
Not my markups. I'm happy. I'm just showing them to you now.
Okay.
You have this plan.
If you're presenting them with markups, they do have to be submitted, do they not?
I can submit them.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, if
It's more. I think they just give context in terms of the overall lot and the building envelope being very unique. The house that is there is non-conforming. It is located 7.1 feet from the eastern side yard, where 12 feet is required. The western side yard, the house is located 7.4 feet, where 12 feet is required. And it's located 40 feet from the critical coastal resource, so where the setback is required to be 50 feet. The garage, which is in the northern part of the property, so closer to the road, is non-conforming in numerous ways. First of all, it's not supposed to be there because we don't allow accessory buildings in the front yard. So it violates section 11.1 of the regulations. It is also 3.2 feet from the side yard to the east, where 12 feet is required. Obviously, because it's in the front yard, and it's too close to the road, it violates a front yard setback of being 24.9 feet from the street and 30 feet is required. So as part of this project, what will happen is, the nonconformities will be reduced and eliminated as follows. The front yard setback, will be eliminated because the garage will be removed. The accessory building in front yard violation will also be removed because the garage will be removed. The eastern side yard nonconformity, in addition to the garage, which is 3.2 feet away, is the house will be constructed slightly further away from that side yard. 7.2 feet is proposed. The existing house is 7.1 feet, again, where 12 feet is required. On the other side, the western side, the nonconformity will be reduced. We're proposing the house will be 8.1 feet from that western side yard, where 7.4 feet exists now, and 12 feet is required. And in terms of the critical coastal resource setback, existing house is 40 feet from the critical coastal resources. The house will be moved further away, 2.3 feet. So it will be 42.3 feet from the critical coastal resource. In order to do all that, the variances that are required are the two side yards, 7.2 feet on the east and 8.1 feet on the west. Those represent reductions of existing nonconformities of the existing house. The critical coastal resource setback, section 2.17, although we're making it better, further from the house, 50 feet is required. We are proposing 42.3 feet. So those three variances we're requesting represent reductions in existing nonconformities. The remaining three ones that we typically run into when we have a situation like this, unique shaped lot and the need to raise the FEMA standards. We have a 5.9 foot average elevation here. And so we have two height variances, one for average building height. We're requesting 32.5 feet where 28 feet is allowed. And for total building height, we're requesting 37.3 feet where 36 feet is allowed. The last one is floor area. I've been in front of this board seeking floor area variances in FEMA raised situations because in this particular proposal, we have 1,300 and give you the wrong number, 54 square feet, which is area beneath the lowest point of the first floor joists once raised to FEMA. Our regulations, when you close it in, requires that to count toward floor area. It's unusable. It has to be breakaway walls, but it counts to 50. So when you look at the numbers of these requests and you see we're looking for floor area of 4,062, looks like a big number, but 1,354 of it is unusable and non-livable space. We are utilizing a portion of it to move the non-conforming garage underneath the house. So that garage will be 544 square feet. The other 810 square feet is just area. We call it storage. You can't have electrical outlets there. You can't have mechanical equipment there. And as I've noted in other applications, if you don't close them in, you, I think, have an eyesore of houses that are, have a void underneath them. And it also, based on one of our other applications, it presents a security concern. You have cars or anything you're storing there, because it is a busy area down there on Middle Beach West. The house has been designed not only to comply with FEMA, but and Dylan will get into this. It has been designed for energy efficiency. It has been designed to obscure outdoor mechanicals. So there isn't going to be a subsequent request to come and say, oh, we need to put our air conditioning condenser over here. It's all been factored into what we're proposing. The height variances, the narrow lot that we have puts us into an even lower height category under section 2.1.7 of the regulations. The typical total building height is 37 and a half. An average building height in the R4 zone is 30 feet high. When you have a narrow lot, 2.17 takes that height down. So here, the average building height permitted is 30 and the total building height permitted is 36. The existing house that's there, if it were raised to FEMA levels, the roof would be higher than what we're proposing. So any owner of a house such as this can raise to FEMA level, and our regulations let you ignore side yards and setbacks. Unfortunately, it doesn't address floor area, but you can raise that house and it will be higher than what's being proposed. The floor area, when you take out the 1,354 feet that's on the ground, leaves 2,708 feet. The floor area that's permitted under this zone is 2,840. So it's not an outrageous request for floor area, and it's in line with many others that I've requested and this board has approved in terms of incremental increases in floor area when you have to count the area underneath that lowest floor joist. In addition to the reduction and elimination of the nonconformities that I covered, I would submit to you that this lot also satisfies the traditional hardship requirement. It is extremely narrow. An 18.4 foot wide building envelope, in my opinion, is basically unbuildable. You would never be able to build a house and realize anything close to the permitted coverage and floor area with an 18.4 foot wide building envelope. It would look like a big, long structure that nobody would want and nobody would do. Today, I submitted late a letter which contains the usual case law that I know I've presented to your board before in terms of reduction and elimination of nonconformities, a justification, a variance apart and aside, and without a showing of traditional hardship. I think we satisfy both here. But I put a copy in front of you because I recorded it, uploaded it late. I'm getting used to the online portal myself. I want to make sure the board knows that Mr. Jeremiah and our team has made outreach to the neighborhood, going way back. As soon as this plan was arrived at, he circulated the plan to his neighbors. Don't know if we've had a chance to see on the online portal, but we have supporting letters from neighbors, including the direct east and west neighbors, who would arguably have the most impact from this. Interesting to story in that as late as yesterday, I was contacted by the neighbor directly to the west, directly to the east. The Solomon family, and their attorney Michael Salzbeck, contacted me and couldn't locate the plans and the site plan and my narrative. through the online portal. I shared that with you as client. Mr. Jeremiah had a discussion with the son of the owner of the property, who's elderly. She was having difficulty understanding through those communications. Both Mr. Jeremiah and myself, with Attorney Salzman, woke up this morning and had an email from the neighbor fully supporting the proposal. Once they received the information and got our explanation and why we're doing what we're doing. And then these, unique problems that you have on lots of this size when you have to raise to meet FEMA standards. Lastly, today, very late, we got a letter from DEEP in response to the coastal site plan, which is part of this, and indicating no issues or concerns from their end with respect to the consistency with the goals and policies at the coastal management. I'd like to have Mike Ott go through the site plan with you, to show you, and then we'll have the architecture and the elevations and floor plans.
Good evening, members of the board. I apologize. I have a bit of a cold, so I apologize for my voice. Just for the record, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor, with an office here in Madison at 60 Wall Street. Mr. Chairman, may I, or Maria, may I share my screen?
Yeah.
Can the board see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the site plan that was submitted as part of the package. I don't know if you have it in front of you or if you had hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at it. I'll zoom in a little bit here, just for orientation. Middle Beach Road West is on the right of the sheet and the sound is on the left, and north is pointing, obviously to the right. Yeah, there's the north arrow there. So the house is pretty straightforward, not really a lot to tell you, but the house is oriented north-south along the same lines as the existing house, and the new house is also moved northerly, away from the water, away from the sound, just a hair over 2 feet. The limits of the new house are shaded in yellow on the plan. These purple lines and numbers are for the computation of the average grade elevation, which is also on the plan on the I'll zoom back out on the right-hand side of the sheet. The coastal resources on the site are general coastal resources, which are applicable in all municipal coastal site plan applications, and coastal hazard areas, meaning the special flood hazard area zones that the parcel is located within. The parcel is within, I'm gonna look at my notes, zoom in on my notes to make sure I don't make a mistake. But you can see, bear with me 1 second. You can see that the parcel is located within both an AE elevation 13 zoning, special flood hazard area zone, as well as a VE elevation 14 zone that's identified in note 8 on the sheet. So again, the coastal resources on the site are general coastal resources and coastal hazard areas, the flood zones, special flood hazard area zones, and then off the site, of course, immediately adjacent coastal waters and beaches. There's a bit of a beach along the frontage. I think that's really it in a nutshell. There's no anticipated adverse impacts to coastal resources by the project. This is pretty straightforward to be the demolition and removal of the existing home and the garage up front, as Attorney McCann explained. I can zoom in a little bit. I don't know how clearly you can see this on my screen, but The garage is here where my cursor is moving. And as you can see, it's very close to Middle Beach Road West, and as Attorney McCann explained, is partially within the front yard, which is not allowed under the zoning regs. I think that's it. Again, pretty straightforward. I'd be glad to answer any questions that the board may have.
So I have a question. The elevation of the first floor due to FEMA requirements, what is that elevation?
You can see, I'm zooming in here. Hopefully you can see this. And Dylan, the architect can jump in here also, but because the new home, as well as the existing home, is partially within the VE elevation 14 zone, that under the town's floodplain management regulations as well as FEMA's regulations, that means the entire structure has to conform with the more conservative zone, the VE 14 zone, and that drives a minimum first floor elevation of 16. And as you can see, we're just a tenth over, a little over an inch over the 16 at 16.1.
What's the meaning of the lower floor elevation? That's height above sea level.
Yeah, all the elevations are in simple terms a bit oversimplified, but yep, height above sea level, and that lower floor, as Attorney McCann described, is the area below the enclosed area below the base flood elevation that can only be used for parking, storage, and access to the upper floors of the building, as you know.
Yeah. So basically ground level is 7 feet above sea level, in fact.
7.5, yes.
Well, we gotta be up to 16, so you need 9 feet roughly from the ground.
Yeah, and again, Dylan Parker, the architect, I'm sure he's going to explain that in detail when he presents to you.
Yes.
Hello?
I'll stop sharing. If
And
that's okay.
everyone's good with Mike? Okay, great. I'm Dylan Parker. I'm a licensed architect in Connecticut and also California and New York. I own a residence in Madison, but I don't live there full time. I live in California full time, but I've been working on this project with my dad, who's also attending the call. And I can walk us through the drawings if I can share screen. Am I enabled to share?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so, these are the elevations of the building, just kind of on the cover sheet, but we can come back to them if we need. But I think the 2 points that, may just kind of add a little bit of value to the discussion for the variances that seem to be problematic in some ways or large-ish, is the plan area, the floor area, and then also the height. So for that, I just thought it might be appropriate to kind of walk through the plans. As both Chris and Mike have described, the ground floor plan on the right here, well, let's call it the ground level plan, has 2 garage doors in it. It is, constituted of structural piers of concrete that lift the whole house up, as we've described. And then there's a storage area in the front. There's a little bit of access on the interior so that you can come in and out. But everywhere that you see a thinner portion of wall, let's see, why can I not zoom? Oh, here it is. Everywhere that you see the wall thinning out like this, if it's not a door, as it is in this location, it's a breakaway panel, which will, the structural engineering of that will allow for a storm surge to just kind of take it through and not knock the house over. So this is, we like the infill panels, as Chris described. To see a house just standing up on stilts is I suppose it's kind of common architectural language in some places, but it isn't actually one in Madison. So, you know, we've made some effort to try to make, you know, the house look like a house that isn't just up on stilts. There's, you know, an area below that, you know, could be like an outdoor patio and a stair access from the front, which leads down to the, to the shore. But again, you know, all this area here is enclosed, but it is technically not living area and it's unconditioned space. So it's not like the rest of the house. The rest of the house area, you know, we had to kind of walk a fine line of balance between, you know, fitting on the site and making sense, but also, you know, providing the client with the function that they want, with the program that they want. And in doing that, I would say that this is kind of a conservative house. I mean, there aren't any areas of it that are especially large or grandiose. So you can notice here on the first level that you come upstairs to a, you know, a fairly modest entry. There is a den room in the back with a, you know, kind of for TV watching. There's a modest half bath. There's a mechanical space that we need for the building. But you know, the kitchen, living, dining is not a super large area. I mean, it works and it has nice continuity and flow, but it is by no means oversized or you know, grandiose. And then, you know, it opens up to the front out to a deck so that the client, his family, and their guests can, you know, take advantage of being out there by the water. Moving to the upper floor, it's 3 bedrooms. Again, just for the constraints of the house, you know, bedrooms 2 and 3 in the back, which face out towards the north, towards the road, Middle Beach Road. They're actually rather small bedrooms by, you know, most people's standards. You know, they fit tightly in the space, but they're a little bit on the small side for the kind of standard and for this kind of quality and location and type of residence. There, you know, is an ensuite bath and a shared bath, and the master suite is actually has its own closet and bath. Actually, let me back out. Oh, sorry, it's 4 bedrooms. I forgot. There is an inboard bedroom here, also in the same way, not extra large. You know, these are all modest bedrooms. Shared bath out here, laundry on the floor, and then a master suite in the front that looks out to the ocean, to the sound. You know, a couple of closets, and then, you know, a medium, I would say, size master bath, but efficient, tightly put, and then a nice size master bedroom, but, you know, not overdone. There's a roof plan here. There is attic space above this, which I can describe a little bit in the elevations, but one of the key things, and Chris raised the issue already, is, you know, at the attic level, there's room up above for mechanical equipment, but also exterior space at the front for exterior mechanical equipment like the, you know, the compressors that you need to run heat pumps for your HVAC system. So, you know, the strategy here was to find a place that is exterior to the building, but is shielded from anyone's view. You know, this would be the view from that'd be the west neighbor. So the roof here is in the way of the west neighbor seeing any of the outdoor mechanical equipment. On the front, under the gable, it's actually a setback. You know, this wall back in here with the access door in it is set back so that compressor units actually sit outdoors and are screened by a slatted kind of you know, a fence element that prevents you from anyone from seeing them very directly. And, you know, and the roof comes down on both sides. So the only acoustic kind of exposure of this is out in the direction of the sound and not laterally to either of the neighbors. So that's kind of how that works. The other issue, well, that you know, the variance is being asked for about height. We took the approach with this building that we wanted very much to look contextual. And so the pitching of the roofs, you know, are you know, they're not super steep or anything, but they're steep enough that they're consistent with lots of other buildings all along Middle Beach West and all throughout, you know, Madison. That, you know, with the exception that we had to kind of go a little shallow over here for for the front porch, but, you know, again, that's not unprecedented either. But the overall massing of the house, we wanted it to look in keeping with the houses that are around it. And I think I pulled up here. Where did it go? Hold on one second. I had it on you, and it disappeared. Great. No, I had Google Earth up, but because it's instructive, but now it seems to have gone somewhere. And so, oh, here we go. So this is the existing house right here. And you can, and the existing garage that's been talked about out here to the street, which goes away. But you know, the houses on either side are actually in quite a similar scale, and this one actually has quite a similar roof pitch. So we feel like, you know, our efforts to be contextual were, you know, were well founded and, you know, and work. This one's a little bit different for being a gambrel. You know, there are gambrels here with steeply pitched roofs. You know, this one is a shallower pitched gambrel roof. But you know, the idea of the house is that really it's going to be both similar in size and scale to its neighbors, and similar in character. So that's kind of where we were headed. And those were really, the big aspects that, you know, we thought were worth talking about. And with that, I'd throw the floor open to questions.
No, Attorney McKeon, did you have your presentation? Start asking questions or?
At this point, I field questions from the board, from the public, from anybody.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. McKeon about his position. So it kind of seems to me, and tell me if this is like a misinterpretation, that like the net reduction of nonconformities, like a argument, seems to rest on the elimination, like specifically of the garage, because I mean, because it, you know, it seems like the relative like reductions and like the and the additions of new nonconformities, you know, they seem to relatively cancel each other out. So it seems like what needs to push it over the edge is the elimination of the garage nonconformities, the accessory and the front yard setback. Would you agree with that, or would you?
Not entirely, because I also think it has to be weighed against what you're allowed to do without any permission whatsoever. And that is take an existing house and raise it to a height that's higher than what we're proposing here. So while that's not technically a reduction in nonconformity, it is something I think that the board has to consider when you look at the alternatives of what the site could result in. The owner of the house could leave the garage out front non-conforming and raise the existing house higher than what's being proposed. So to me, the reduction of the nonconformities, and I don't think it's insignificant, that it is being moved slightly further away from the western boundary and more significantly away from the eastern boundary. The location of the house is being moved. On top of that, 2 feet further back on these sites may not seem like a lot, but it's a lot when you're talking about septic location and the ability to keep consistency with the way houses are built for the character of that neighborhood. So to me, it's not just looking at the nonconformities that are going to be reduced by this project. It's what you has to be weighed against the other options that the property owner has. So I guess I don't agree that it's just limited to removal of the garage, although that is a significant difference. That will eliminate multiple nonconformities. And it has been the basis for other variances that this board has granted in similar fashion.
So if the hold on. So if the So if there wasn't like, if you didn't have those two variances being reduced, you would still say, you could still make a net reduction of non-conformity zone argument?
I think so. I think the new house, because it meets coverage, because of this quirk we have in our regulations about counting 1,354 square feet of area that should not be counted. And in fact, I'm going to make that a point when we rewrite our regulations, because it's just not appropriate that that should be counted. But when you look at the location of the house, it is being moved further from both neighbors. That you're only talking about a 12-foot side yard setback here, so a foot means a lot in this neighborhood, a real lot. Here on the east side, we're going from 7.
East side is a tiny change.
Yeah, the
West side is 7.4,
That's
81.
correct, correct. Where the existing was. The existing house currently on the east is 7.1 and the west is 7.4. It's going to 8.1. So the house is being repositioned on the lot. Not to mention further from the coastal resources. But I'm not going to disagree with you that removal of the garage is a significant factor here in making the lot more compliant. From a zoning. No question about it.
In order to reduce the nonconformities further, was there any consideration to move the whole house back 7.7 feet to meet the 50-foot coastal resource 50 feet requirement? Would that be a consideration if the house is being completely rebuilt, or?
I can let the architect answer that question, but I think I know the answer, and that is the houses are built along that road, and if you move your house back, you're compromising your ability to see the water.
What?
You're compromising your ability to see the water. You have other houses that are located closer to the water. There also is the idea of keeping the houses with some degree of consistency along that street. But perhaps Dylan could weigh in on that, but in fact, the neighbor to the east
I could answer that question.
raised the question about whether you were gonna move the house closer to the water for that very reason.
My name is Brian Jeremiah, and the 60 houses at 61 Millbridge West, the house, 11,971. The home adjacent to the west was just built within the last year. And you can see that there is pretty much a similar line of where the waterfront side is, all kind of similar. But I actually moved the house, he moved it back a little bit, and I did the same thing and moved it back pretty close to what he is, which is somewhat jeopardizing the view on the east side, because you can see the existing house is now going to be in front of me. I was okay with that. I wanted to start, when he had a precedent. The new, Earl Puckett set precedent by building a new house, and I kept it by moving it back. So to put my house way behind that would really, I don't think anybody in the whole strip that if you spread that Google Maps out would do. Nobody's done. So I wanted to be a little bit further back to keep in line where he is, but not so far back that it would really jeopardize the view and be weird relative to the homes that are adjacent.
Where's the septic in this?
It's on the
Street side?
it's on the other side. It's on the water side.
Oh,
And that septic was designed and engineered less than 6 years ago. It's a brand new septic. Code compliant.
and you comply with coverage, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes.
Steve, do you have any?
You like that.
I always have things. I just never. And I think actually literally some, one question that did just pop up, because, Mr. McGinn, you did just bring it up. How high, if for whatever reason we ended up denying it or anything, how high does the applicant have the capabilities of being able to raise the house
The existing,
without it currently?
it is in my narrative, but, the existing house could be raised to, let's see, 2 feet above the required FEMA elevation, so it could have an average building height of 32.8 and a total building height of 37.3. And we're seeking 32.5 and 37.3. So essentially the same on the total height.
Okay, but regulations allow for 2 feet above FEMA, and in essence, currently aiming for almost FEMA.
Only as to existing houses, yes.
Got it. Okay, I'm trying to understand.
And that's without taking into account the narrow lot reduction.
Does that,
The numbers of, if it were in a narrow lot, you could go to 37.5 feet.
Mhm.
But I do think under section 2A 1.5, which is raising of an existing house, you can go to up to 2 feet above the FEMA level and 2 feet above the permitted height. It is addressed in that particular reg. Floor area is not addressed, but height is.
Okay,
So those are the numbers of what you could raise to.
and that's what, just wanted to make sure, because as far as I knew, you guys were aiming to hit at least FEMA levels, if not a scooch above or whatever, to presumably make room for cars or anything like that kind of aspect of that. But you did just mention that you had the opportunity or the legal right to be able to go even higher than that. It was like, okay, how much higher than FEMA are you normally allowed to go? So thank you.
Sure.
As far as that one. Now, if you didn't have the breakaway sides on the lower floor, does that floor area still have to be counted?
No,
Okay, so it's the sides, the breakaway sides that, so wanting to have those sides is what makes that have to now be a factor.
correct. Wanting to have the space enclosed rather than just a clear shot of a house on stilts.
Historically, Madison has had houses on stilts. So I'm used to seeing them that way. So just making sure I'm fully understanding that wanting to be able to enclose that is indeed making it an interior space, and therefore accepting the idea that now floor space is going beyond what was is currently allowed and accepting that fact. Okay, just making sure I'm fully understanding it. The reason for that, and sorry did that. That was the question I had. Okay, and we already talked about that aspect. I think at this current moment, I've run out of particular questions to inquire about. I'll probably have something I'll pop in my moment.
Sure. So, I did want to address paper, your submission of the, application. Attachment A, as it was called. You have 2 paragraphs at the end, traditional hardship conclusion. I don't know that I would fully agree on the statements in those 2 areas. We may just rule on the other stuff, but the fact that the lot is narrow doesn't automatically assume, well, then we can go build something. We want to build something larger there, and the lot's narrow, so we can just do it. Is almost what it sounds like. It's almost an as of right thing. But, because it's too narrow to have a normal looking house, we get to make it normal looking. And I'm not sure that since there is already a house there, And yes, it has some nonconformities, but that doesn't necessarily, in my mind, maybe you could make me see it differently, justify a traditional hardship. But before I pass that on to you to address the one, I want to address the next paragraph, which talked about, variances being consistent with the coastal resiliency plan. And thus your conclusion says it's clearly consistent with the comprehensive plan of the town. And you only addressed there the resiliency effort in making height restrictions flexible in case of home elevations. So in that regard, that does address some compatibility with somebody's plan in the town, but it's not an official adopted standard or anything, just because a coastal resiliency plan came out of a committee. But again, you didn't try to sell that as the entire justification for the whole variance, but just for the height. So if you'd like to address.
Yeah, I can address both of those points, actually. So the traditional hardship, it's more than just a narrow lot. The narrow lot leads to an 18.4 foot wide building envelope. And in the zone, you are entitled, in the R4 district, you are entitled to have coverage up to a certain amount and floor area up to a certain amount. And the functional result of that narrow lot is the owner of this lot will never realize those. Will never realize anything close to coverage or floor area unless you're building a really odd home. That's my point on the traditional hardship. It's not something anyone would build. Could we easily imagine an 18-foot wide, long structure? I suppose, but no one would build it because no one would buy it. So I think it is the functional equivalent of rendering the property significantly different than other lots in the R4 district because of the narrowness, because of the fact that it's on the water, because of the fact that you have to build something that can pump. So it's a little bit more than just a narrow lot. And maybe I didn't state that enough in this particular attachment. The letter that I submitted is a little bit more detailed. In terms of the comprehensive plan, I agree with you that the coastal resiliency plan does not state the comprehensive plan of our town, but what it does is our zoning regulations and our plan of conservation and development and the other things in town and boards and commissions and departments that weigh in, including in part the coastal resilience plan, whether you like it or not, or agree with it or not. But that paragraph says that the reduction of nonconformities, in other words, making a site more compliant with the zoning regulations and or eliminating nonconformities, together with the coastal resilience and plans indication, and pretty much a universal policy, at least along the shoreline in Connecticut, of trying to make people be able to raise their homes so that they don't get destroyed and these, epic events that seem to be happening. All of that is part of the comprehensive plan. Making the lot more compliant, a house more compliant as a whole, together with these other things, is what I'm arguing makes it consistent as a comprehensive plan. So,
But it's not.
it's not the sole basis for that.
It's not a basis. Anything else says?
Just out of curiosity, did anybody, do you have the square footage of reduction? Total square footage of reduction that's occurring by doing this?
I don't.
Does any of them, did the architect or anybody have it by any chance? Knowledge of what that total square is, or just, we know that we pulled it in by 2 feet here, so it's smaller.
Well, we also removed an offending structure out front too.
Yeah.
So that has to be.
I don't know,
As well.
absolutely, I
Yeah.
just don't know what size the garage is, I don't know what size any of it, and knowing that
My-
everything is kind of shrinking up and kind of pulling in, I'm just curious overall. if there was a total number of,
The garage
Square
needs to be
footage
two
reduction.
hundred and twenty square feet.
You talking about the existing area of the existing building plus garage?
yes, down to the new building, yeah, whatever the total was, that in the end, we are gaining this much extra square footage of.
No,
Yes.
I don't, I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers to hand.
Meaning that much loss.
Exactly, yeah. So, okay,
The, huh? The,
They could do
the
it next
garage
minute.
is,
Mary, do you have the dimensions? Let me go-
it says, well, they're calling it a shed, but it says 220 square feet. Would that seem about right?
220.
That, it's 200, the garage is 220 square feet.
okay, and then the house total is 100 feet across minus, then. Okay, so. Possibly pushing 300 or so square feet total reduction.
Maybe, but I think if you're trying to do apples to apples on,
It's hard to-
we took away this and we're adding that, it's not a fair comparison when you're talking about a house that has to be 16 or 17 feet off the ground. The goal is to try to get this home that is not, that's on a lot that can't really fully realize the potential of allowable coverage and floor area. If you're gonna adhere to all of the regulations, including coastal resource setback, including the side yards, it is impossible to reach that. So I don't, the design of the house, I don't know that you can do square foot for square foot comparison.
Well, if strictly on the basis of that, a big thing with this, and I totally agree with the idea that, overall, the idea is that you're reducing nonconformity on property, and that's a big thing that we want to be able to do, and I'm all for the idea of that. It was wondering what that nonconformity reduction was. And if being able to just say, well, yes, we're reducing it. And so, okay, what is that reduction? That's where my question came out, but, so
Yeah, no, I
don't
understand.
have it, I get that you don't have it, whatnot, but. So,
And can I back up?
Yeah.
You said 16 feet off the ground. I thought it was 16 feet above the water.
What? That's
Okay,
correct.
so 9 feet above. the
Yeah, the average grade is 5.9, which the plan shows. Yeah, I just wanted to call the board's attention to other applications that we've made, and including one and with this particular architect and also with Mike Gott on Parker Avenue, which was a very similar situation, and a unique lot, and the floor area and the height become the issues when you're dealing with these lots and you're dealing with the FEMA lines.
That's the one with the swimming pool.
I think that one had a pool. 19 Parker was back in 2024. But the 87 West Wharf, which is under construction now, that lot, they were able to meet meet the yard requirements, but again, they needed floor area relief because of the area that has to count toward floor area underneath the bottom floor joist. Also on Oak Avenue, was a similar, request where they enclosed and all of a sudden had to realize a whole bunch of square footage that, when they put them over the required square footage. So it's not certainly not a new concept that I'm advancing this board. And I mean, the house right next door had a number of variances, was in front of this board on a couple of occasions. And not sure if they did get a floor area variance.
Tucker?
Tucker,
Yes.
yeah, that's 63 Middle Beach. So my point being, and I don't mean to suggest you can do apples to apples on one property versus another, because they're all different and they're all unique. But when you're talking about a rebuilding of a home to comply with FEMA, which I'd like to see all of the houses done because I walked that street after Hurricane Irene and I saw the devastation. I mean, it's something we need to try to avoid. This is what you're talking about. You're talking about needing height and floor area under our current regulation. Hopefully they can change, but that is an issue that every single one of these that has come to my office, it's a challenge. And this is a year plus effort and maybe longer on your part to try to come up with some reasonable balancing of those factors. The only other thing I wanted to mention is the extent that there are questions and discussions you want to have like this before you go to deliberation, please ask them and let us weigh in because we obviously can't once you close the hearing. That's what I was asking. Yeah.
Do we have, anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of the application?
Cecilia Pfister, I'm 73 Middle Beach West. I have a question and I have comments. The question is about the third floor. It seems like it's more than mechanical space. That's huge. It's the size of the house. It says it's added only a ladder access, but that view out the front seems a waste for mechanical equipment. It looks like it could be living space, a porch.
You should say how high the ridge is, the floors.
Sure. So we have not included a section per se in this set of drawings, but there isn't actually anywhere near as much occupiable space at that level that you could stand up and have a code compliant head clearance. So it is definitely specifically for mechanical, and the hatch door that goes out to it actually is only about 5 feet tall. So it's, I mean, and I'm sorry that it isn't clear in this drawing because this is an elevation drawing and not a section, but you know, under the ridge, which is this dashed line up here, if you can see that, you know, that's a little bit, you could have some headroom clearance there, but you know, the floor line is down here, you know, where the cursor is. Hopefully you can see the cursor. This hatch is about 5 feet tall, and in the middle, you know, under the gable that runs, you know, into the drawing away from us, you would have about 2.5 to 3 feet either side of the center line that you could comfortably walk and not hit your head. So no, a section would explain this more significantly, but it's not a layman's kind of drawing, and it's not one that we deemed, you know, particularly useful for this this part of the application. Obviously, we will be generating those for construction, but that, I hope that speaks to your point. And again, I will go back and reiterate, you know, I've seen lots of projects. We've all seen lots of projects where, you know, there's mechanical stuff that gets tacked on to the outside of the house. Sometimes, you know, on a sidewall next to the neighbor, it needs to be, you know, elevated out of the FEMA flood, you know, hurricane level as well. But and sometimes that equipment makes some amount of noise. I mean, so actually having a space for outdoor equipment that faces out to the water and is shielded from projecting noise. Noise is all, you know, more or less line of sight, right? If you can see the machine that's making the noise, you probably can hear it. But this has, you know, the roof on both sides completely shield any equipment that's sitting on this little outdoor deck here from projecting noise, you know, in line straight towards the neighbors, right where their front, you know, sitting porches are out to look at the water. So any noise that's generated here is basically headed only out towards the water. So these are all things that we, you know, worked hard to try to get the right balance. There also, we need to use this, you know, space for ductwork because the, you know, the floor to ceiling height here is, you know, not very high at the second floor. It's got kind of a 8 foot, so we can't drop the ceiling to run ducts under the structure of this attic level floor. Those ducts will run above the structure of the attic level. Well, I won't call it a floor. I'll call it because I don't want to be mistaken. It's not a level or a floor, it's a structural deck. So, because it'll have equipment on it, it has to be structured. That equipment will be mechanical equipment and ducts. So that's the point. But I mean, maybe if I can use the annotate tool, I mean, maybe I can kind of try to highlight a little bit, you know, the space where you know, a person wouldn't hit their head is kind of this. Can everybody see that? So, center line of the building, couple of feet either side. Now, that space occurs, let me zoom out then here, and wait, where'd you go? I mean, I can try to quickly show where it would be in the roof plan. Let me annotate again and clear this. Sorry, this feels very ad hoc. I hope I'm not. So, you know, here are the ridges.
Can I interrupt for one second? The door you see there is not gonna be a door. That's going to be a wooden door, because there's no reason to see in there, because it's just gonna be
Well,
all,
that's what I was concerned.
there's no reason.
Installation becomes a slider.
No, it's gonna be a wooden door, because there's no reason.
So, yeah,
And it's only, and that door is only 5 feet tall.
yeah. So,
Can I ask a
Did you have
question?
a comment, ma'am? You want to-
Yeah. I'm concerned about the size of the building, the replacement. It's a small cottage. I get it. I've got a small house too. And it's not compliant because it existed before the regulations. But it's still not compliant. They're still pushing the boundaries with a new building that's bigger. Can't deny it's not big. This is one of the 3 smallest lots on the water side on Middle Beach West. Of the 17 total, it's one of the 3 smallest. But you want to put in a 4,000 square foot house, which makes it one of the largest on the beach. I think you're disregarding what's there and encouraging overbuilding. If we disregard all the regulations that we already have in place. I think there's just too many variances that are being asked for to build a large house. A smaller house could be built. Saying, well, nobody would buy it shouldn't be the goal. If you want to build a house for yourself, that's the goal, not I want to build a house to sell, make money. And I'm just asking for abide by what we've got. Can't disregard counting the bottom level. Because that's in the regulations. You can't just make an exception and pretend that doesn't exist. Like this, ask that you apply the rules as reasonably as possible.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Is there anybody online, Maria? Or is that it? Just we can see.
There is one hand raised.
Whoever's raising their hand, what's the name?
Mike,
Mike, could you please state your name and address and your comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Michael Mullane. I live at 64 Middle Beach Road West.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you tell me if the ridge line of the proposed house, the elevation of the ridge line, how that compares to the ridge line of the Tucker's house? I'm actually looking out my window right now and I'm wondering how similar they're going to be.
Hey, anyone want to stab at that or? I have no idea.
My understanding is that they're fairly similar.
I could,
Because right now it's significantly lower, but obviously you're raising the whole house.
they were Middle Beach Road West 67, no,
Mike,
63.
I live at 64, but Tucker's, I believe, is 63, and I believe the house you're talking about is 61, correct?
Mike, you have any comments as far as the?
Well, it's a difficult lot because it's so small. I understand that. I mean, it looks like the architects have spent a lot of time trying to make it look very nice. It can only go so big.
Okay.
Zoom.
Well, Mark, yeah, I don't, Mike, is to your other question, I don't think we have the answer to that, so.
That was my only question. Thank you.
By the zoning chart for when you approved the Tuckers, the total building height was 34.94.
Anyone?
I just want to clarify that. That may very well be what it is, but in order to really understand what that means for
Yeah.
somebody across the street, you need to know what the average grade is.
Right.
Around the house. So I know that the Tucker's elevation, there's a retaining wall between Brian's property and the Tucker's. It's a higher grade. It's a higher grade, so once again, it's not apples to apples. It may be 34.5 feet high.
But they built a retaining wall that had to go 3 feet, 4.
It's 3 or 4 high so far. Total building
They have to
height,
go back
where
to
close to
the site
floor
plan.
is 37.3. They're roughly similar. Those roof heights, in terms of the very top of the roofs, are gonna be similar.
Okay. Sorry. Anyone in the audience, anybody else?
Nobody else has.
Could I ask one more question?
Certainly.
The square footage of the existing house of, let's call it the first floor and the second floor. How does that compare to the square footage of the new house of the second floor and the third floor? Not counting anything in the basement or first level, just counting first and second of the existing house versus second and third of the new house. The square footage, just raw square footage. Not counting the third, the upper floor, which is the mechanical floor. I understand that. I'm saying, how do those two square footages compare?
The new house, that I think what he's talking about is usable square footage is 2,708 feet. The existing house, existing floor area of the house alone is 1,432 square. That doesn't include the garage and the decks, which are also within setbacks. It's really one story. What is your existing house? No, excuse me.
Any,
30% increase, something like that.
I think that's it. You're looking at percentage increases. Look at that based on other variances. I personally obtained variances on Island Avenue. The exact number, because I don't know what to say. The thing on 19 Parker Avenue, for 19 Parker Avenue, the floor area that was allowed was 59%. So on Island Avenue it was more.
So I think the only issue with the increase in floor area, I'm thinking about this. You know, I asked you about additional hardship. Well, nobody would build a house that's 1855. But that, as I said, doesn't just justify, well, I can build it. You know, I probably would use Google and say, well, that's too narrow, so you can build it on this one. As opposed to saying, well, 18 feet wide would not give you the necessary room for bathrooms. And in order to get any kind of usable, it's at least by 4. The rationale as to why the house was made wider than 18.4, other than nobody could build that. That's my point. And, and I think that's what, why the square footage becomes questioned. This is still a good sized home. To squeeze into that barn.
Mary, did you want to?
I had something, two questions or clarification. I had two questions. So the mechanicals, you cannot put them down on the lower level because of flood. So they're in the attic, which is avoiding asking for other variances. Because you're not gonna be able to fit them all around. Outside. So that's hence why they went up in the attic, right? Okay, that was one thing I wanted to clarify. And the footprint, again, is 1504, which is allowed. And it's going to be 1504, which is the footprint of the building. And we were saying that your allowed floor area is 2840. So even if you did not, if we had regulations where we didn't have to count, we would be compliant, right? Okay. Now, unfortunately, we don't. I just want to make sure.
That's right. We would be, instead of 2840, to 2708.
2708.
2708.
Right,
But in that 2708, there's mechanical rooms,
right,
there's things that take away from
right,
the actual square footage of the house.
right.
It's not.
So, right. You're right, stairs and whatever.
And that's what Dylan's point was. We've gone through the floor plans, which we generally don't do much with the floor plans, but these rooms aren't excessive.
No, okay. I mean, it's only 1500. The box is only 15. Okay, it complies coverage wise. Okay.
I'm sorry, and the plot is what?
The coverage, the box or the footprint, it complies. It meets compliance.
Great. Any other final questions from the board?
Going back to one of my other questions, from the idea of your legally, the right to be able to raise it, does that come with the sides?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That's okay. The FEMA regulation allowing for raising of the houses to the shoreline and everything for stormwater and all that stuff, does that come with sides?
Does it come with sides?
Yeah. So like if we denied everything entirely and you said, well, I still have the right to be able to raise my house, which you absolutely do,
Right.
that has to just be up on stilts.
Correct.
Stilts pylons, that's it. You can't put sidings or anything like that around.
You could put landings and staircases around it to get to it without adhering to any of the yard requirements. You can go 2 feet above the height. And
But it can't be closed in.
underneath cannot be closed in.
So the stuff be open, fully exposed, visible throughout it and everything.
But it would still be non-compliant.
But,
Yeah.
no, you could close it in if you were within the floor area limitation of the
Well,
zone.
that's my
Yeah,
question in regards to if you were, but
but you couldn't use the
you
space.
couldn't close it if you wouldn't be able to close it in, given that would push you over the floor area.
Well, I don't know, because the footprint of that house, you might be able to close in portions of that ground floor if you had a floor area beneath the 28.
As long as you stay
Yeah.
underneath that area, it could, some sections could be, but just to be able.
Right.
Okay, just making sure again, I fully understand.
Man, I only wanted to address, the fact that it's small slot. I think underscores the traditional hardship requirement in this district. It's a small slot on the street. I didn't appreciate that, but, the statement about can't just ignore the regulations. I don't see it as an ignoring of the regulations in the case law that I have cited repeatedly in front of this board.
Didn't mean to say,
Including the Mayor Whitman case, says that you are able to do just what we're asking here. It's not, we're not breaking new ground. This is, the case law allows for you to make the determination that we're asking you to make. So, I didn't I didn't want it to be characterized as ignoring
I
the
think-
regulations.
I think my point is not.
Oh, I was speaking actually with
Okay.
Sister, that she had indicated that we're asking you to ignore the regulations. It's to the contrary.
You have final questions? Mr. McKeon, any final statements or?
I don't have anything else to add.
I just have a procedural question. When we go to deliberations, Kit, even though he's not voting, yeah, so Kit, would you,
He can ask questions.
I was offer you a final statement.
I
Go to
appreciate
the
it.
board, sure.
Thank you, Ken. I mean, myself, again, looking over and hearing everything. The vast majority of the requests in regards to the application, I'm totally for. The idea of being able to reduce everything that involves reducing non-conformities, I totally support. One, I'm having a hard time myself though, wrap my head around and accepting though, is the idea of the floor space issue, because that can be eliminated strictly by leaving the signs off the entire thing and not enclosing that bottom level. And whereas indeed, all the other houses I certainly have seen up and down Middle Beach, West, East, Middle, I guess, there's Middle somewhere. Yeah, everybody, there's a lot of narrow properties. A lot of people seem to prefer the idea of enclosing the space, and I get that. I assume all those though have that enclosed area as part of their floor space. They understand it and they meet whatever the requirements are. Being able to enclose a garage, I absolutely appreciate that. The rest of the space, I have a hard time kind of coming to terms with myself. But everything else, I love the idea of being able to get more houses up to, you know, FEMA compliance, to be able to reduce the amount of damage that occurs on them, especially since we've been seeing more larger, greater storms that seem to be having higher velocity. And the fact that you have what, a 5-foot beach wall there. My family's used to have a house over on the other side of town that I think it was a 10 or 15-foot beach wall. So we definitely appreciate the ideas and concerns about having to take in the coastal damage that can occur from natural disasters. But it's only, I think, the floor space that I have a harder time trying to wrap around for all of this myself. But that's where I stand on this particular issue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if there's nothing else, I'll motion we move to I motion we close the public portion of the hearing and into deliberations.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Steve, you want to start?
Sure, I'll
Put you in the hot seat.
Well, I'd say that. And so first of all, I believe the lot size. I believe that the reduction in property is positive and it's part of our consistency that it's affected. I look at the floors, the buildable space, 1504, that 1504, they have every right to build to that footprint. I also believe that we've done in the past that the enclosed non-living area, we've always given an exemption for that. And it's really not big space. It's there more for aesthetics. So I would deduct the 1,400 square feet for the ground floor from the buildable space, which gets them within the compliance of the area that they have to build, which is 2840, gets them down to whatever, call it 2,800, but it's below. So I'm strongly in favor of approval.
Unless you,
Okay, pretty much in agreement, but I don't buy the traditional hardship argument only because the hardship would necessitate that you justify why you would go beyond a certain level, or how much would be necessary to be at a minimum to be acceptable. And I don't see that presented in here. It might be logical to have something there, but it's not here. So, but that having been said, I think the reduction in nonconformities is sufficient to grant it. So, and I would go with you on allowing the enclosure ground floor.
Yeah, so the net reduction in nonconformities in this case, right, like in general, I think it really hinges on, one, how egregious the existing nonconformities are being reduced are. And in this case, you would compare that to both how logically justifiable the nonconformities being increased are, and like how relatively offensive they are compared to the existing. So really, it's about how we weigh the relatively speaking these things. So we definitely have the legal discretion to grant this variance, right? Like, we just I guess the, the fundamental determination is if there is a holistic non-reduction that occurred. So yeah, so I guess for me, like what it came down to is like how logically justifiable the increase, like the additional nonconformities are. And I would say that based on the relative building constraints created by both the lot size and making the house FEMA, I think that does add into justifying it. Like even if you don't necessarily want to accept that that's a legal hardship, I think it does add to the nonconformities argument. So, I guess what I'm saying is I think the nonconformities, the net reduction of nonconformity on its own is enough to justify it. And on that alone, I'd be in favor of variance.
John?
I agree with what's being said here, but I also noted that there were three letters of support for the application, and I understand some is not in favor of it. I do believe that the narrow lot creates a tremendous amount of difficulty in building a house of this nature, trying to replicate what's been what was built in 1890. It's almost unheard of in these days, the day and age with the FEMA requirements. So everything is elevated along the shore as a result, and what needs to be done. The elimination of the and the reduction of the nonconformities as stated to me are sufficient to make me agree with the application. Also, I think there's a real attempt with the type of house, the roof and the shingling of the roof and the shingles on the outside kind of replicate the old design kind of make any sense. So kind of makes it a lot better than some of the other houses there, in my opinion. Anyway, I have to support the app.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add, we talked about the floor area. When I first saw this application, the floor area jumped out before I clicked on it and read about it. And of course, I think that it's the typical raising. We get this all the time because of that area under the house getting marked. And I'm also thinking a little bit about the harmony of the neighborhood. I know you mentioned houses without what do you want to call it? Borders or breakaways. And I know they have the in the neck road, but I haven't seen a lot of that. Maybe I just missed it, but to me that having the breakaway and the covering it's more harmonious with the majority of the houses down there. So I think it's more in tune of how things are. And I think I also agree with them that the narrow lot justifies a hardship. And again, being in harmony with the other houses there, I think you had to build something 18 feet. It wouldn't fit in. I think it would not be in harmony, but everything else that said I agree with. So unless anyone has anything else, I'll I'll make the motion. What was that? Okay. I'm gonna motion we approve. I'm gonna motion that we approve application 26-4, 61 Middle Beach Road West. To allow variance requested 3.6D. Twice, 3.8B. 3.9A. 0.9D. And 2.17. For the reason that we think there is a reduction in nonconformities, and also the board unanimously thinks that it is an odd sized lot, so it's a legitimate hardship. The variance is based on the plans as submitted, and that all construction must conform to those plans. And on the coastal site plan consistent with the goals and policies, coastal management. Second that mouthful.
One second.
All in favor?
Wait.
Discussion, sorry, what discussion?
So I would like to take out the bit about the hardship because the hardship portion, as I stated, yes, it's a hardship there. It's hard to put something in there. But is it 18.4 feet? If he's committed and say, well, I've got one that's gonna take us right out to 40 feet wide, it's, you know, wide as the lot is. Okay, is that plan, you know, the right size, or maybe you could do it at 32 feet, maybe 24. Point is, none of that was justified in terms of saying we have to be able to go to this width as opposed to just 18.4. If you got something where you're gonna say, I got a hardship, I can't make it that small, can't make it, you know, to simply say, nobody. That does not justify a hardship.
Thought the fact that the lot was oddly sized was a hardship in itself.
It is,
Regardless
it
of-
is a hardship, but we don't know, you know, how much of a hardship.
50% narrower than a home. Most of the.
Yeah, so tell me what size, we're just saying, listen, I wanna do it on reduction. So
It'd be a hardship.
fine, but is it a hardship at 18.4, but it's not a hardship at 20? The point being,
Still a hardship. Size one, minimum is 80 feet, this one's at 42. So anything less than that, it could be considered a hardship. Now, they might be able to do it. And they're also reducing the space.
that's exactly my
The
point.
hardship is, it is an undersized. That is a hardship, because you have to want to build something that is livable, consistent with the area.
What's so good, what's livable?
So you're, I think.
24 feet, 28 feet?
Well, you have 1,504 square, 1,504, your base, and I'm not gonna be, I'm not an architect, but I'm certainly pretty convinced that it's something that's 18 feet wide. But certainly have a hallway at 6 feet, little rooms at 12 feet long.
I get it. I've said several times, I get that.
So I think if it comes down to something that's 28 versus 30 feet, maybe we could discuss this particular case.
But see, that's not brought up, that's my.
So I don't think, I mean, does the proposed house, but
We've had it before, they came up and said, so here's how much we can build it, we can't go beyond that, but we can get to livable spaces 4 feet. We've had people come in and show us that, see it here.
With the lot still, they're all still the size of lot. Because they can. I mean, how large are
yes, I guess that's what I'm saying. It's just
they?
like
25
the
feet?
lot is.
5
So I think if we take away the house, just let's talk about the lot. I mean, to me, the lot is smaller than it's supposed to be. So that itself, it's the smallest one on the street. So do we put it aside? 'Cause that's why I'm considering it a hardship. I'm not even thinking about.
Take a normal lot. 80 feet, you take 12 for each side. And that would give you like 56 feet. That should be anything less than that.
Okay. I get it, you don't want to address my question. So,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
okay. And it's not presented, that's what I'm saying.
You guys. Well, I mean, if we say, I guess if we all agree on granting the variance, we should just go with like, we'll get the lowest common, denominator.
Thank you.
So, I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
Do. And
Okay. Go with that.
Yeah.
Just say the reduction in nonconformities.
Yeah.
Maria, can I just say that, then strike the part about,
Motion to approve on the basis of reduction of nonconformity.
yeah. So my original motion minus traditional non-conforming lot. Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous, so there's no opposed. Congrats.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank the board. Thank you very much.
That motion, we take a 5-minute break. Sorry, I got it.
Chris, who's going there? Okay. Sorry. I respect me.
Can you leave the microphone mute?
Yes, what if? So I'd like to call the
Did he
applicant,
unmute? Yes, he did. I'm sorry,
Yes,
I'm yelling at you.
I'd like to call the applicant for application 26-522 Flower Avenue to please present their case.
Good evening, Chris McKeon. Office address is 900 Chapel Street in New Haven. I live here in town at 31 Hotchkiss Lane. I represent the applicant, Mike and Rachel Zorella. I believe they are online. They are at home. They have a 3.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, which is part of the reason why they need some additional space on this very unique lot. In fact, when I came in here tonight, I ran into Matt Williams, who was the original architect of this house. And the house was designed, let me introduce the rest of my team first, sorry. Patrick Gable is the project architect, and Mike Ott is the site engineer. And we've been working on this project for a while, even though the addition is rather a simple addition to this house. But this particular lot is a very interesting lot, and I can submit this, but to me, things in color kind of jump out at me. This is the shade of the lot, pink. The yellow is the placement of the house that was built, and the black dotted area is the building envelope based on the R5 zone. So, logically, you'd ask yourself, why is this house here on this lot? Well, to the north and to the west is coastal resources, wetlands. They're marked on the map. Mike will show them, but they compromise this entire lot. So the most logical, least environmentally offensive spot to put this house back when they built it was in this lower right-hand corner of the lot. At the time this house was designed by Matt Williams in 2008, the property was zoned R2. It was a 40,000 square foot minimum lot. I'm going to give this to you since I referred to it. I think.
Thank you. Yeah, when it says the exhibit. So,
when they were designing this back in 2008, Matt designed the house and they had to come in and get a variance, which they did. The R2 zoning then required 40,000 square foot minimum lot area. This lot, by the way, is 9,749 square feet. It required a 40-foot front yard setback, 20-foot side yard setback. So you can't do anything with this lot back when it was R2. Also at that time, there was an existing house on the property that back then we talked about coverage in terms of percentage rather than square footage. And there was a 10% coverage limitation in the R2 back in 2008 before we did the change in the regulation where we have the table. And based on the size of the lot, it dictates how much coverage and square footage you can put. The existing house at that time was 13.14%. So they built a house, and I'm not sure if you can, Patrick could bring up
13% coverage.
13% coverage. So when they came before the zoning board back in 2008 with the original design of the house.
talking about the original, oh,
Yeah, I don't know if you have the,
I probably don't.
if it's in there. Patrick, do you have the existing elevation of the house?
Yes, yes, I do. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Go.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So while he's doing that, when they came before the zoning board of appeals back in 2008 to get this house approved, they had to stick to that 13.14% coverage. That was sort of the way you got something done at the time. And So they built the house with 13.14% coverage. That was the variance that was granted. Variance back then, of course, the lot at the time was undersized for the R2. Clearly wasn't 40,000 square feet. 9,749, but as you can see, this area right here is a raised concrete patio. So this part is recessed. You can see the edge of the chimney here. So this addition is proposing to be built on this concrete patio up and over to make the house symmetrical. But the reason it exists in this fashion is because of the old zoning, R2, and the desire to keep it as far away from the coastal resources as possible. At that time, and the old variance is in part of the record, the zoning board found that this lot predated zoning and is in a coastal wetlands area which precludes doing many things with it. That's a quote. So it's a challenging lot is the point. And when you look at the home now, that the property has been changed in zone to the R5 district. The R5 district requires 10,000 square foot minimum lot. So while we're still a little bit under that, but it allows for smaller side yards, smaller front yards, a front yard setback of 25 instead of 40, and the side yard of 12 instead of 20. And most importantly, it allows building coverage of 1,552 square feet instead of 975 square feet. Which was 10% of the lot, assuming it's on upland. And it allows 2,920 square feet of floor area on the lot. The current home is 1,969 square feet. Again, because of the constraints that were put on it when it was designed as an R2 home, and the prior zoning board had found that the lot itself was a hardship because of its location. Now they're left with this home, so the ability to add to it. If you're going to add to it within the building envelope, you're building closer to the coastal resources. So the only logical spot to add space is in the spot where the house already is and where the patio already is. Because that adheres to the concept, which I think was a good concept at the time, to keep things away from the tidal wetlands, coastal resources, and adding the square footage. If this home were properly located in the R5 building envelope right now, I wouldn't be standing before you. But because of the old R2 zoning, the prior variance, which found the lot to be a hardship, the construction of the home in accordance with what was approved by the zoning board back in 2008, and the fact that they built the house outside of the envelope because of all those factors, they cannot utilize nearly all of the coverage and floor area that the zone now would allow them. That's the hardship argument here. And a few months back, there was a case decided in Fairfield. And I had a variance on the docket here that I ended up drawing because this case came down. That Sergeant versus Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of Fairfield, and if this house had a variance to be located a little bit closer to the street than the regulations allow and a little bit closer to the side yard than the regulations allow, as I showed on my color drawing there. And it just said that they wouldn't need to come in and get it because they're not doing anything more than what the initial variance was. It's 25 feet from the front yard. And well, 15, we're proposing 15.2 front yard and a side yard of 9.7. And of course, because the entire lot is within the 50-foot critical coastal resource setback, we're requesting that variance as well. But none of those are being increased. We're not moving any closer. We're not moving any closer to the side or the front. We're not moving any closer to the coastal. In fact, we're proposing the addition as far from the coastal resources as this house was originally constructed for the very same reasons. We did get a response from DEEP today. They have no issues, and I think in this case that's important. And they recognize that this addition to the home is being done within the existing footprint of the house and the concrete patio. And we have letters of neighbor support as well. And so, you know, to state the hardship, which it's not the easiest one to state, but the lot is being uniquely located in coastal wetlands area, as the Madison Zoning Board of Appeals had determined and granted prior variances back in January of 2008. The lot being zoned R2 at the time, the granting of the prior variances approving the front, side yard, and critical coastal resources back in 2008, and then the subsequent rezoning of the property to R5. I think this is a little bit like the scenario at 26 Bassett, where they had a very narrow building envelope there, but the construction of the house before led to, in part, to the conclusion of the hardship that you determined in that case. That was back in April of 2025. So the addition, and I'm gonna let Patrick go through the addition so you see exactly where it is. But first I want Mike Ott to explain a little bit about the location of these coastal areas. So Mike, can you do that?
Yes, I can. Just for the record, again, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with an office here in Madison at 60 Wall Street. And I will share my screen if that's okay. Oh, I guess Patrick would have to stop sharing. Yeah, it looks like, yeah. Okay. Thank you. So this is a Flower Avenue at the bottom of the sheet, just for orientation, and north is straight up on the sheet. Again, I'm not sure how clear this appears on your screen, but I'm sorry, go ahead. I think I can hear the board speaking.
I'm just saying, I'm gonna walk up and look at it.
Okay. It is a little bit difficult to see. But the addition, just like the previous application, is the small area shown in yellow. It infills that corner, the inset in the house, as Attorney McCann described. And this one I think is even more straightforward than the previous application. The construction is limited to that, that lower right corner of the house in that inset area. The coastal resources on the site are, again, general coastal resources, coastal hazard area because the site is completely within the special flood hazard area zone. And on this site, there are tidal wetlands to both the rear or north of the house, of the existing house, and also to the east. And again, the purple lines are the average grade calculation, which is on the plan. So that's really it. I think it's hopefully this is clear enough, but it's really just. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I can't tell where the house is on this and where,
Mike, let me see if I can share mine.
and where the addition.
The
Yeah,
addition. Let me see if I can share mine, if it makes a difference.
Yeah, thank you. I stopped sharing.
Oops. Result.
Okay. So this is the existing house.
Sorry. So yeah,
This is the
the existing is over here.
The addition is a two-story addition and then back over because this part of the house is one story, so it's 2 stories and up within the existing footprint. The only part that is being added to, which is realizing a little bit more coverage, is putting structure over this because this doesn't count to coverage. If it had a cover on it, it'd count 50%. This is patio. Right. So with the addition, so what's permitted in the zone for coverage is 1552. With that additional area added, we're at 1359, still well below the coverage maximum. And the floor area is similar. Right now, there's 1,969 square feet. Adding the floor area of the addition here, we get to 2341 and 2,920 square feet of floor area is allowed. Okay, I guess I just could not. That's a perfect picture of.
Yeah, I'm making it bigger.
Oh, that's existing. That's existing. Got it. So the addition is on here, up and up above the existing single level. Got it. Okay, that's what I needed to know. I don't know if I stole your thunder, Patrick, but.
Sorry.
Not at all. My turn? Hi, I'm Patrick Gable. I'm an architectural designer with a business located at 883 Boston Post Road in town. I'm going to share my screen. So I'd like to present this proposal for an addition comprising of 372 square feet to this existing home. In the scheme, we utilize the original home's footprint and egress in a 2.5-story addition located over the current southeast patio. We figured this was the most logical and favorable location for an addition. Excuse me. As it's furthest from the coastal resources and creates balance to the architectural massing of the building. And through this minimal addition, we're not only restoring symmetry and balance to the facade, we're more importantly providing useful and practical space to a young growing family through the reorganization and efficient expansion of the floor plan. Providing a much needed living space to a formerly confined and restricted dwelling. So the current home coverage was legally non-conforming, not to repeat, when it was located in R2 in ways of hardship when it was constructed. And now that the home coverage and floor area are conforming after being redesigned or redesignated to R5, we're only requesting the same setback variances that the original home was granted previously. And I will show you what we added. So we just added this portion to the first floor level. So if you see these hash lines of walls, that's all that's added. So it stops here. These are the walls. And we just made this living space larger as it was only this big and, you know, smaller than a very small bedroom for a living room with a family of 2 kids and growing. So the second floor. On the second floor, we reorganized the space a bit. So originally this was 1 bedroom and that was all. So we added an office, some usable space and, you know, a master bedroom suite. And on the third floor, this was also just 1 big bedroom right here. And we've added a den for them as well as extended the bedroom into that new addition in the roof. I can show you what it looks like in elevation. So what we did was we just added this roof line to kind of balance the facade and extended these Dutch gambrels to that southeast portion of the building. And that's about it on my end.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Just a couple of more things. The case that I mentioned, relating to, Fairfield case. What that case said is if you were just granted a variance saying you could build your house 15 feet from the road and 9 feet from the side yard. And it said nothing more. You wouldn't need to come back. Now, we, of course, this board limits their variances to the actual plans that are being presented and requires construction in accordance with the plans that you're looking at tonight. But that's not always the case. And in this Fairfield case, they were allowed to build a structure X number of feet from the road and from a side yard, and that's all it said. And the court upheld that the issuance of a building permit to let them add to it, so long as they weren't exceeding those variances that they were granted. But it underscores the importance of making sure grant variances specific to what you're being presented, because if you don't, you can get something very different than what's contemplated. By the way, that case is, there's it's on appeal, so I don't know where it's gonna end up, but that was the reason I brought it up. That together with the fact that if we were in the building envelope here, we wouldn't be asking for a variance because everything is within the allowable requirements of the now R5.
Mr. McKee, can you just briefly review the coastal site plan with us?
Yep. Mike, do you want to do that? I did get a deep letter. Sorry, the DEP letter came in as usual, very late today, but they conclude that the proposed activity is consistent with the applicable goals and policies of the CCMA and potential adverse impacts have been avoided or minimized in accordance with the statutes 22A 92 and 22A 106. They recognize that the addition is going to be to the existing single-family residence and adding of the addition is entirely within the footprint of the existing house and the existing 12 by 8.2 foot impervious patio. So they see it as not creating additional issues from a coastal area management standpoint. Did I cover that, Michael?
Yes. Yep.
Do you have any other questions? Anybody?
Just for clarification, get well cut on board member, didn't get better at saying, although normally I do it on Zoom, so person's weird. But for clarification, that bump out is strictly just a like bay window, so that's the reason that it doesn't necessarily, it's not encroaching further into the setback.
Correct.
Okay. From the overhead look, it does look like that is an extension, and yet the measurements aren't based off of it. So your plans before, I want to make sure we're good. Okay, thank you.
But to clarify that, I think that the bay window has to do with its position vis-a-vis the length of the entire wall that it's on. And it meets those criteria.
And I certainly assume so, just the little yellow square does show
Yeah,
the bump out, but the measurements going past it. It's like, want to make sure it was clear and verbally on the record.
Understood.
I have questions for the applicant.
Any questions?
Yeah, any? Do you have anybody in the audience like to speak in favor or against? Is there anyone online?
Nobody has their hand raised.
I'm sorry.
No one has their hand raised?
Okay.
Oh.
Tim, again, any final comments from your team?
No, other than, in addition to the hardship that I lay out in my narrative, I think the previous finding of hardship by the zoning board of appeals as to this particular parcel could be relied on by this board as well. Because I do think this particular lot, given all of its characteristics, is in fact a very unique lot in this town. Certainly from my perspective, I haven't seen one quite like it. And in my conversation with Matt Williams tonight, he said the same thing in designing the original house. This was a very challenging piece of property to put a house on altogether. So,
Any final questions from the board? Okay, motion to close the public portion of the hearing and move to deliberation. Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Deliberation. John, you want to start?
Based on the ruling of the previous zoning board of appeals, stating but based on the finding of hardship, this is an undersized lot and two-day zoning and close to wetlands area which precludes doing anything with it. And the idea that the footprint of the new addition doesn't deviate from previous house plan covering the patio and so forth, but it doesn't increase the size of the footprint. I would propose to support this proposal.
Yes, I agree with what John said. I think there is a traditional hardship here in the shape of the lot. So what the coastal law, what that's place on that lot, it really all limits, like I think the original finding of the board was correct. There wasn't indeed a hardship, and nothing is getting with it besides just building up. So I would say, I would support this variance.
Dennis?
I agree.
You?
I was, just gonna go with it, go out there.
I do want to say that, Fairfield Bay shouldn't have any variance, because we don't have anything with council on our side, and, it's the variance, need to be taken into account. I do think that logic beyond that case is one of the house. I think it's a good addition for the town, but people who live there. I'm having a hard time grasping the hardship, but I will refer to the rest of the board.
Yeah, and maybe I'll get Tristan, but I believe that the fact that the hardship is in the previous variance and that created circumstances, you've got a grandfather variance already there. And so therefore that hardship is
And I think we have.
grandfathered. I'm sorry?
That's the argument.
Yeah, it probably should.
You think what should be part of it, that the previous board found a hardship? So we're agreeing with it.
Agree on the previous board.
And the house was positioned there accordingly, which not remove the hardship. That if it's a hardship, still exists.
Yeah, I agree with what's been said, and I don't really have any things to add to it. So I'll motion, we approve application 26-5 for 22 Flower Avenue. To grant variance, to grant the variance is requested for section 3.6A, 3.6D, and section 2.17. And the reason is we currently think there's a hardship pre-zoning lot, the wetlands, the setup for the houses, and we also agree with the previous decision by the previous board, zoning board of appeals that
What big setbacks that they need to.
thank you, yes, we agree that there was a hardship that the other board found, found that the variance is based on the plans as submitted, and all construction must conform to those plans, and that the coastal segment is consistent with the goals, policies of the Coastal Management Act. Excuse me, sorry.
Sorry.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Congratulations. And I'm gonna, everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
On the motion, we've approved the February 10th, 2026 minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Here it comes. All right, Steve, you?
Yeah.
Steve, you are a yay. The meeting minutes?
Who seconded the motion to approve?
John did.
John. No, the minutes are needed.
To approve the application.
Me. John seconded the minutes. I seconded the application.
Okay.
We good?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Oh,
All right.
Seconded.
I got that.
Sorry, it took longer than I.
Hey,